On this Sunday night, a dangerous ultimatum. President Trump sets a Monday deadline for Tehran to open the Strait of Hormuz, threatening to strike Iran's power plants.
That would certainly hit the people of Iran even harder.
How the Iranian regime is responding. With the war sending gas prices soaring.
Sometimes I feel like a sheep being led to slaughter.
Some countries are offering relief at the pumps. Will Canada follow suit? Plus, remembering the first face-off, how a northern community is marking a special anniversary in hockey history.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Iran exchanging fire with the U.S. and Israel, with both sides hitting residential buildings and nuclear weapon sites. The war in Iran is now approaching a dangerous crossroads after the U.S. president's latest ultimatum. Good evening and thank you for joining us. Donald Trump has set a deadline of Monday night for the Iranian regime to open the Strait of Hormuz, the critical choke point for the world's oil supply. If not, the U.S. is now threatening civilian targets. Trump posting Saturday night that the U.S. will obliterate Iranian power plants unless the Strait of Hormuz is opened. Tehran says the strait is open to all friendly vessels, and it warned the shipping lane will be completely closed if Trump makes good on his threat. Iran's parliamentary speaker also warned that if its power plants are attacked, critical energy and water infrastructure across the region and beyond would become legitimate targets and be irreversibly destroyed. The regime released this map pinpointing the locations of power plants across the Middle East. The decisions in the coming hours risk plunging the region into darkness and chaos. Candice Cole begins our coverage tonight.
The exchange of airstrikes continue between Israel, Iran, and Hezbollah fighters in Lebanon as the 23-day war continues to play out with no end in sight. Sunday, Iran struck civilian sites in two southern Israeli cities, injuring over 100 residents and damaging apartment buildings.
Luckily, no one was killed, but that's due to luck.
Iran's actions in retaliation against Israel's attacks on bridges in Lebanon crossing the Litani River in its pursuit against Hezbollah. This as U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Saturday to obliterate Iranian power plants if Iran fails to fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, a major choke point for a fifth of the world's oil supply.
That would certainly hit the people of Iran even harder. And remember, initially, Trump claimed that he wanted to liberate the people from the regime.
In response, Iran's military warned if Trump makes good on his threat, the Islamic Republic will respond with attacks on, quote, technological and political targets associated with Tehran's enemies outside the Persian Gulf region, according to the IRGC-affiliated Fars news agency. Already, Iran has launched 2 missiles targeting the British-American Diego Garcia base in the Chagos Islands, nearly 4,000 kilometers away, raising concerns that Iran could target Central European cities as the war drags on.
If this would be true, it is the more evidence that what the president is doing here, taking out the ballistic missile capability, taking out the nuclear capability from Iran, is crucial.
In addition to targeting sites outside the Middle East, Iran has also threatened to bomb desalination plants in the region, critical for supplying drinking water to Middle East countries.
It's probably the most significant crisis since the Arab oil embargo in the 70s. Unless this kind of stops somehow miraculously in the next few days, we're going to see a very big jump in prices in every single material around the world.
All this as Congress, the only entity in the U.S. with the power to declare war, continues to be sidelined by Trump on his plan going forward.
And right now, we've spent $20 billion in the first 2 weeks of this war alone. The terror threat around the world against the United States and Americans is spreading, and there's no off-ramp.
Now the Pentagon is set to ask Congress to greenlight another $200 billion to help fund the war in Iran. Jeff?
Candice Cole in Washington. Thanks, Candice. The war is sending gas prices soaring around the world, including here at home, and a growing number of countries in Europe and Asia have now introduced temporary subsidies and tax cuts to help soften the surge in gas prices. Mackenzie Gray on whether Canadians can expect any relief.
The weather in Vancouver is right for a Sunday drive.
How pissed off are people?
But it'll cost you to get your car out with the highest gas prices in the country.
It is what it is. Although sometimes I feel like a sheep being led to slaughter.
You'll need your gloves at the pumps in frosty Ottawa and in Winnipeg, where drivers are in solution mode.
I'm feeling like I'm going to have to start taking the bus, like walking.
It might be time to crack out the bus schedule, with gas prices now over $1.72 a litre on average nationally, a 52-week high, up 42 cents from before the war in Iran started, according to CAA. And the situation's likely to get worse before it gets better, with energy facilities now being targeted by both sides throughout the Middle East.
We have already seen over the past few days that there have been attacks on oil facilities in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Saudi Arabia, in the UAE.
Rocketing oil and gas prices, a multi-billion-dollar boon for the Alberta government thanks to higher royalty payments, leaving the Premier to consider suspending the provincial gas tax. But even then, Danielle Smith warns it won't make a big difference.
I just want to manage some expectations, is that, yeah, we could take that off, but you'll still be facing the high prices at the pump because the world prices are just out of our control.
European countries taking a different route, with Spanish President Pedro Sanchez cutting their fuel tax by over 50%. The Serbian president showing his work, giving a 61% energy tax cut. And in Slovenia, they're worried if there'll be any gas to tax at all, with a new 30-litre fuel limit causing headaches for consumers.
We have two different cars, so we will have to now be careful which one to take.
While shortages on gas in an oil exporting country like Canada is highly unlikely, Jeff, a quick trip to the gas station on Sunday night might be wise, with prices expected to jump anywhere between 3 to 7 cents on Monday morning, depending on where you live.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks, Mac. The cost of oil is pushing up prices for other commodities, including food. Rising inflation could also carry consequences for interest rates. And Gaviola on what it all means for your mortgage.
This week, central banks from Canada, the U.S., Japan, Britain, Sweden, Switzerland, and parts of Europe, all singing from the same songbook, worried about the fallout from the Iran war.
The war in the Middle East is disrupting commodity markets and weighing on real incomes and confidence.
The men and women who set benchmark interest rates are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Under normal circumstances, they would think of lowering borrowing costs to stimulate economies weakened by tariffs and trade uncertainty. But now there's talk of having to raise rates to counter inflation sparked by the energy crisis.
The recent sharp increase in global energy prices is causing higher prices at the pump, as we've all seen, and this will push inflation up in coming months.
This financial shock to household budgets is setting up what many observers worry is a K-shaped economy, similar to the K-shaped recovery we saw post-COVID.
When we came out of the pandemic, absolutely we saw when there was high cost of living, it was those lower income people that were impacted first.
The K-shape refers to the diverging paths of the well-off, whose fortunes are becoming richer, and lower-income households whose precarious path is becoming more difficult. Canada's job market is weak. Tariff-sensitive sectors are struggling, and few industries are immune to trade uncertainty. The housing market is sluggish, with consumers dealing with an intensifying affordability crisis.
You combine a cost of living increase with a payment shock if your mortgage is renewal at a higher rate, and that for some consumers is just too much.
One silver lining in all of this is that a weaker economy usually keeps inflation in check. And that may be the reason we don't see inflation go wild this time around.
When we went into the supply shock coming out of the pandemic, the economy was overheated. We're not in that same situation now, so that's something we have our mind on.
Is this going to be a lengthy impact for the rest of the year, or is this something that actually we're going to see resolved relatively quickly? And I think that's just a big unknown right now.
Anne Gaviola, Global News, Toronto.
Cuba's 10 million people were left in the dark overnight after the power grid collapsed once again as that country struggles with the ongoing U.S. oil blockade. It's the second nationwide blackout in just the past week. Cuban officials say they're now restoring power to vital services like hospitals and food distribution. But the Caribbean nation is now facing an energy and economic crisis after the U.S. cut off Cuba's oil supply from Venezuela in January. And joining us now from Havana, two Canadians, Leanne Isaac and Elise Hjalmarsson, directors of the BC-based nonprofit One Shared Future. Thank you both so much for joining us. Tell us what you're doing down there.
Yeah, so basically we have 14 bags, and within those bags are medical supplies, medicine, multivitamins, solar-powered items. There is so much need in the entire country, but we want to try to see if we can get to the most vulnerable.
Right, and we've been hearing about these nationwide blackouts. Tell us what it's been like down there.
In the week since we've arrived, there have been 3-4 blackouts just in the last couple of days. And so last night, what we did is around 10 p.m. In the middle of this national blackout is we brought with us several bags worth of small solar-powered lanterns. And so we hit the streets in Old Havana last night around 10 p.m. and just walked around looking for houses or dwellings that were completely in the dark or where we could see that they were only lit by candlelight. And we put solar lanterns directly into the hands of primarily mothers. And not only do they not have power because of the national blackout, but they also haven't had water for the last 20 days in her entire neighborhood or in her entire block.
They may get a couple of hours of electricity in a day, and then that's when you're trying to get everything done. So you're trying to cook, you're trying to fill up buckets of water, you're trying to, bathe yourself, recharge your phone. They can't afford to buy many of the basic necessities, they're sort of food, so they are tending to skip meals. So things have just gotten exponentially more challenging. The Cuban people are very proud, but it has just gotten to a place where there's so much uncertainty, which I think is adding to the stress.
Leanne Isaac and Elise Hjalmarsson in Havana, thank you both so much. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff.
Our pleasure.
Hawaii is dealing with its heaviest rainstorm and worst flooding in 2 decades. The National Guard is conducting search operations along Oahu's north shore. 5,500 people were forced to leave their homes and more than 200 had to be rescued, with damage estimated at more than $1 billion. President Trump says he's planning to send ICE agents into the country's airports starting tomorrow to make up for a shortage in transportation security staff fueled by a partial government shutdown. On social media, Trump blamed Democrats for failing to agree on a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security. U.S. lawmakers have been clashing for weeks as Democrats call for reforms to aggressive immigration enforcement practices. As a result, TSA agents have gone unpaid and some are now skipping work, causing widespread disruptions at U.S. airports. The sky is falling. Coming up, a suspected meteor crashes into a home in Texas. Plus, after a recent setback, Russia's space program blasts off. A milestone for Russia's space program. A Soyuz rocket was launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome for the first time since November, when that site was badly damaged during a launch. Baikonur is the only launch site capable of handling the Soyuz rocket, which carries crews and cargo to the International Space Station. A homeowner in Texas is in shock after a suspected meteorite crashed into her home. This video shows a bright fireball streaking across the sky northwest of Houston. Officials in the area received a number of reports of a meteor breaking apart in the city's north, and one homeowner says a piece of the meteor crashed through the roof of her house and landed in her bedroom.
First thing I was mad. I'm like, what didn't come through the ceiling? But then when I saw the hole, then I saw the piece on the hole in the floor, and this, and then I saw the rock, and I'm like, oh no, I say that looks like a meteor piece.
NASA says a 1-ton meteor fragment entered the atmosphere and traveled at 56,000 kilometers per hour before breaking apart and scattering in pieces across North Texas. Still ahead, we'll tell you which 2 Canadian towns have been chosen as finalists to host an NHL tradition. It's now live from London. Saturday Night Live UK made its debut last night. Staying true to its US roots, the show had a cold open with a skit showing British Prime Minister Keir Starmer feeling anxious about calling US President Donald Trump.
I just hate conflict so much.
Are you referring to the war or this phone call?
Isn't there a way I could not do both? I just want to keep him happy, Lammy.
That sketch caught the eye of the president, who reposted it on his Truth Social platform. The rising cost of living and war in the Middle East are upending a number of religious holidays, including Eid and Passover. Canada's Jewish community are preparing to come together while facing extra pressure on household budgets. As Lexi Benedict reports, one Toronto organization is giving families reason to celebrate.
With Passover just around the corner, hundreds of volunteers spent their weekend packing food for families in need.
We're here to pack boxes for people who can't get the kosher food they need for Passover.
More than 350 volunteers at the UJA's 6th annual Packing It Forward filled over 1,300 kosher food boxes for households facing food insecurity, ensuring they have what they need to participate in Passover.
It's an entirely different kind of food that we eat during Passover, and so for a lot of families, buying all new groceries and buying families that are specifically okay to eat during the Jewish holiday can be really, really difficult.
Each box includes all of those essential items, from matzah, soup mix, grape juice to frozen meat.
So what station are you at here today?
I'm putting the tea bags in.
And the need continues to grow. Organizers say nearly 20,000 Jewish residents in the GTA are living below the poverty line, with 12,000 of them in deep poverty.
It's such an important time in our community with people having food insecurities. The cost of living has really gone up.
For the Jewish community, they say coming together for a good cause is especially important at a time that's been difficult for their community.
We have been completely targeted. I mean, 3 synagogue shootings in a period of 5 days just in Toronto alone. Community is more important than ever, and standing up for each other is more important than ever.
People are frustrated. People are scared to come out of their own homes. But as you can see, our community is resilient. Our community is uplifted.
What's your favorite thing about today?
Probably knowing that I'm making a difference in the world.
After more than 1,300 boxes get packed by volunteers, they end up here, ready to be distributed to 10 partner agencies to give to those who need it most. Lexi Benedict, Global News.
Up next, NHL legends pay a visit to a small northern community to mark a special occasion. Welcome back. Tumbler Ridge, BC and Taber, Alberta have just been named as finalists for this year's Kraft Hockeyville Prize. In December, a propane explosion shut down Taber's arena, bringing its hockey season to an abrupt end, while Tumbler Ridge experienced that heart-wrenching loss of 8 community members, mostly children, in last month's mass shooting.
Their community wanted something to uplift them, and they saw Hockeyville as the answer, just as we saw Hockeyville as the answer to have our community uplifted as well. So it really, truly is an honor to stand shoulder to shoulder with them.
The winner, announced on April 4th, will host an NHL preseason game and receive $250,000 for arena upgrades. And staying with hockey, the community of Delaney in the Northwest Territories invited some NHL legends for an outdoor hockey game this weekend. The event marked 200 years since the town hosted what some believe was the very first hockey game. Veteran sports announcer Rod Black reports.
On the northern edge of Canada, on the biggest lake within Canada, a 2-century-old dream became reality. This is the remote community of Delaney, population 500, who this week celebrated the 200th anniversary of what many believe is the birthplace of hockey.
Did you know we found this letter that made reference to the fact that Sir John Franklin was in Delaney 1825, 1826, and he wrote in a letter to pass the time his men played hockey on the ice.
There are other cities that disagree with that claim, but to the people in Delaney, there is no debate. To prove that point, they invited 22 hockey legends to their tiny town for an all-star game.
It was just incredible. Watch the community all come together and everybody just be part of it. And they're standing out there watching the game when it's that cold, and it was a blast.
This Winter Classic lived up to its name. It was beyond frosty, with wind chill temperatures near -40. Yet, these former NHLers still showed they had some game, even if they couldn't feel their toes.
It was so much fun, whether you were a player or a coach. Everyone was having a blast. Some guys didn't want to quit.
In bitter conditions, this game still had a bit of everything, from slick moves to some nice goals, and even the play of the day from former NHL tough guy Sandy McCarthy.
You know, it's one of my most favorite times when I drop my gloves. You know, it's, you say when you get dropped to your knee, it's not a good thing, but today it was.
Just a special place. You know, if I'm not here for this game, I never get to see this area or even the traditions that we witness with the stuff that they do. It was great. I'll take away a lot from this.
This was hardly the best game that any of these legends ever played, but then again at -40 degrees, that's not really the point. Because out here on Great Bear Lake, this wasn't about the score. This was about community and memories, carved in ice and frozen in time. And for all of these players who use this as a once-in-a-lifetime experience, they all said that no matter how cold it is, they'd like to do it again next year. For Global News, I'm Rod Black, Great Bear Lake, Delaney, Northwest Territories.
And that's Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Jeff Semple. It's been a few days since St. Patrick's Day, but the party is still going on in Montreal. The snowfall there didn't dampen spirits. Dating back to 1824, the parade was the first in Canada and one of the oldest in the world. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.